Okay, so far we've talked about many different things. We've talked about growth marketing, guerrilla marketing. We've talked about online, offline. We've talked about how to build a brand. We've talked about go to market and the costs that are with that.
Yeah.
We've talked about adjusting a marketing plan. What else could we summarize what you've just talked about? I mean, and adds any more tidbits or tricks while you're doing that?
Certainly. And it's a lot to ask, but I think it's a worthy question to ask nonetheless, because it's the earliest days of any company's launch are the most important until the point they start getting customers. And then all of a sudden, it becomes even more important to live up to what you say on paper and make that a reality to them. It's part of that brand promise that I mentioned earlier. And so I go back to this 5-stage effort, right? It's the idea that you first want to understand. And actually, even before we get there, I'll mention this. First off, understand what it is you're making, right? That's going to be super critical, right? And I don't mean that if you know how to make it, doesn't mean necessarily you know what you actually are making. Customers may change their minds about how they want it to be or what they want it to be. And that's the idea of pivoting according to how customers regularly engage. That's an important one. And more importantly, if it's something that costs money, watch the customers who are paying for this, not the people that are not paying for it.
Okay.
If it's a service that they use for free, a freemium service, or if it's a free offering in general, just watch for those who use it, right? But watch it in mass. You don't want to go simply towards the people, small quantities of people. You want to try to make it as what we call statistically significant as possible.
Okay.
In other words, the lowest delta, and what I mean by delta is basically the lowest change. So in other words, if a lot of people are doing it, there's a good chance more people want to do it too. But then you have to understand how to segment this accordingly. And so I go back to this 5-step process. When you know who you're going to, understand how many people you need to kind of see this to understand, what they're going to regularly engage with. First off, you have to get people to look at it, right?
Okay.
Online, offline, regardless, you have to get people in front of it. Quantity matters when it comes to the marketing funnel, right? And so when you get enough people or viewers to see it, then you have to think through, well, how do we get them to that next level? How do we get them closer to becoming users or customers, right?
Okay.
So the next one is, again, becoming a lead, right? And leads can come from typically what you'd call landing pages. You might use that in an advertisement. Leads may also come from trade shows where you exchange business cards. Leads may also come from simply casual encounters on the street, things like this. The idea is that you exchange information. That's the key part. You exchange information with an intent for something more. And if you give them, let's say for a B2B company, you give them a white paper, or you give them a sell sheet, or you give them a reviewer's guide, or you give them a free sample of a product for an influencer on YouTube or Instagram, something like that. That's going to be important to then get them to the next level, right? Where if they're going to be now influenced some way through what you're offering, nurture them into prospects. Get them to understand really the value of what you're delivering instead of choosing a competitor, right? Think through how you can engage them more. Does that mean getting their friends involved with them? Does that mean getting their colleagues involved with them? Does that mean getting specifically their department or influencers at their school or workplace? Other things like that.